Okay, Riddhi, can we start now?
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, so I see already 26 have joined. So, good evening. Good evening to all of you. I welcome you to this webinar. In particular, I welcome Dr. Jalaj Pathak. I am Bangalore, currently with the Great Lakes Institute of Management at Tamil Nadu, to the Mishra Center for Financial Markets and Economy at IIMA. I am Abhiman, a professor in the economics area and currently chairing the Mishra Center. Just to give a brief about the center, we undertake primarily applied policy-oriented research on financial markets and economy that encompasses various, I think, domains. It includes central banks, mandate, monetary policy, fiscal development, real estate, accounting and finance, financial inclusion, banking. I think whole host of issues we try to capture through this. And in this center, we also facilitate wider scope for research by faculty and doctoral students in particular. We also are engaged with stakeholders who influence policies as well as those who are influenced by those policies or affected by those policies. Today is, in that sense, is a very special day. We are opening up the webinar platform for the PhD students. Whoever has an interesting idea or a paper ready, we welcome them to write to us, and then we'll be happy to allow this platform to be used to share their research. With this brief introduction on the center, I hand it over to Professor Adrija Majumdar to take it over for the webinar today. Adrija is the host for this webinar. Over to you, Adrija. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Abhiman. So I welcome all of you to the first seminar series by PhD scholars from the Mishra Center for Financial Markets and Economy. Today, it gives me immense pleasure to have to invite Dr. Jalaj Pathak, and he is going to present a very interesting work on for a new measure of financial text readability, a very important topic area, and we are really looking forward to the talk. So Dr. Jalaj Pathak, he just recently passed out from Indian Institute of Management, Bangalore. And prior to that, he also has done his MBA from Xavier Institute of Management, Bhubaneswar, and he holds economics, bachelor's in economics. And currently he is working at the Great Lakes Institute of Management, Chennai. So without further ado, we'll start. But a couple of important publications also he has done. I mean, that's wonderful to see. He has published already in International Review of Economics and Finance. He has also published in European Financial Management as well as Cogent Economics and Finance. And the paper which he's going to present today is under review at a very top peer-reviewed journal, the Journal of Accounting and Economics. So really looking forward to your talk, Jalaj. And the stage is yours. So for the participants, you may post your questions on the chat box, and I think Dr. Jalaj is fine answering your clarifications, questions in between the talk as well. So do post your questions on the chat box, and I'll be very happy to kind of ask them to Dr. Jalaj.
Thank you, Adrija. Thank you, Professor Abhiman. First of all, thank you to IMA and the Center for providing me this opportunity to present my work. Without further ado, let me start the presentation. So what we do in this paper in brief is that we present a new method of financial text readability. This is derived earlier from a new measure of financial text tone that we introduced, and this we show that how it compares to the existing financial readability measures. Now, this readability measure that we we prove in the show in this paper is called tone shift. What it does is that we isolate and quantify the tone change due to the incremental contribution of a certain complex multi-clausal phrases and valence shifters. Valence shifters that are adverbs and adjectives such as but, however, although, words like that. These multi-clausal phrases and valence shifters can possibly alter the meaning and hence the tone of the sentence. Using them, we define a new measure of readability, which we called as tone shift. Now, a higher prevalence of such multi-clausal phrases and these valence shifters can lead to a higher ambiguity, thus difficulty in reading both for investors and analysts, which can thus further lead to higher uncertainty. We analyzed 10K filings from 1994 to 2018 and test whether the idiosyncratic volatility, that is the market model's RMSE, root mean square error, which is defined as a measure that you check with respect to whether the volatility of a particular firm is affected post 10Ks are filed. This particular measure is significantly associated with our measure tone shift over and above the impact of the specified control measures, as well as the popular and existing readability measures. Now, we further to this, what we also do in this paper is that we study the trends in MD&A and 10K readability over the years and evaluate whether the SEC plain English rule, which was imposed in October 1998, had any desired impact in making the financial text as a 10K or the MD&A section of firms more readable or easier to read. We find that for a large majority of US firms, tone shift has been steadily declining after 99. That is after the imposition of the rule, plain English rule, which suggests that the rule had the intended effect. However, the existing readability measures such as an average words per sentence, a percentage of complex words, a fog index, or the file size of the 10K do not show this behavior and are actually at odds with the results that demonstrate that improved readability of firms post 10K filing. Thus, we present a result that is actually completely opposite to what the existing readability measures have been showing. And we show that the 99 plain English rule actually had the desired impact. Now, when we talk about the existing readability formulas, their discussion and criticism can be dated back to Ogeman in 34 and Dolce in 39. Both of these studies pointed out that such formulas are often used out of context. For example, fog index was specifically derived to understand the readability capability of the people who are enlisting in the Navy at that time in the US. Also, another important variable, as to say, which is used in readability measures is called percentage of complex words, which is defined as a percentage of words which are equal to or more than 3 syllables. 1981 specified that when a reader interest is high, such as in case of analysts or investors for a financial document, comprehension does not necessarily decrease by writing below grade level. Grade level meaning what particular education level the investor or an analyst has. Most recently, Lochran McDonald in 2014 criticized the uses of fog index with respect to financial documents because multiple polysyllabic words such as telecommunication or corporation or depreciation or profitability, even though are complex, quantified complex, but are very easily understood by the readers of financial documents and are very common. The second component, which is called the average words per sentence, which is another common component in these major existing readability indices, is again prone to measurement error. Both of these were specified in 2014 by Lochran McDonald. Our approach, on the other hand, is quite different from the existing techniques that are outlined above, whether it's fog index or Fishkin caked or file size. We rely on accurate quantification of the part of the text which contributes to complexity in parsing, and which can alter the connotation of the sentences by use of nuanced writing. So the complexity in parsing can maybe be caused by, let's just say, multi-clausal phrases such as a decreased profitability may be caused by. And this connotation alteration can be caused by a high usage of adverbs and adjectives such as even though the profitability has gone down, although, or however, and then the sentence changes. So we take both of these into consideration to define our new measure. Hart in 2001 study compares two broad approaches of text analysis. So one of them is defined as per a predefined psychological content dimension. And the second one is analyzing word pattern strategies. Now, the 2001 study compares these two approaches by drawing up a metaphor of two people trying to understand a city, how a city is drawn. So the idea of a psychological content dimension is by driving on the street, and the idea of word pattern strategies such as these readability formulas is trying to understand a city while you are trying to view it from a helicopter. Now, the word count based approaches provide linguistic information of this text content, how the readability is, how the tone is of the overall text from an aerial distance, that is, while you're viewing it from an helicopter. However, this could gather you some details, but it can also lead you to lose information around the corners of the street. So if you are flying in a helicopter and you're trying to see the map of the city, you get an overall lay of the city, but you do not know how the corner looks like, how the houses are arranged in the corner, which streets it bends where there is a dead end. You won't know that. Now, this new readability measure that we introduced in the study improves upon these corners of the details by the use of balance shifter and by using a whole sentence as a unit of tone quantification, which can be understood as providing binoculars to a person in the helicopter. Thus, he gets that overall aerial view as well as gets detail on the corner of the streets. We define and calculate this tone shift as an absolute difference in the financial text tone specified in our 2021 paper, earlier paper, which is currently also under review. And so this methodology takes into consideration three things of tone. First, sentence is used as a basic unit of tone quantification. Second, multi-causal phrases are considered. And third, balance shifters are considered. Now, the tone calculated through this methodology is then subtracted from the tone calculated using the bag of words approach and the LM dictionary. Thus, the difference of it and the absolute value of the difference is what we quantify as tone shift. The idea here being that the difference in tone due to these multi-clausal phrases and these balance shifters and using sentence as a unit of analysis, this could lead to difficulty in comprehension by the reader. And thus, the absolute value of difference in tone due to these factors is what leads to the difference in comprehensibility. And this is what we quantify as tone. This is also our way of trying to see whether we can kill two birds with one stone. That is, we are trying to identify a measure of readability while using tone itself, so that an analyst or an investor wouldn't necessarily have to go through multiple measures to understand what financial document they are dealing with. Consider this example of the company AAC Holdings as published in its MD&A section of the 10K on 2015 March. The sentence is, the gross profit margins declined slightly from the prior year, primarily due to the startup activities at the Indianapolis airframe maintenance facility. Now, if you try to calculate the tone of this particular sentence using the bag of words and LM approach, it would be -1 for the word decline divided by the number of non-stop words. So it will be -0.625. However, the sentence has one balance shifter, that is slightly, which is a de-amplifier. So it takes down the tone of the negative word decline. Thus, the overall tone is, using our methodologies, -1 for decline, +1 for +0.8 for the balance shifter slightly, divided by the number of non-stop words, thus -0.125. Thus, the readability measure that we define, tone shift, is calculated as the absolute value of the difference in these two tones, 0.05. We have, by choice, taken up a very simple example to explain this. However, you can understand that the presence of multi-clausal phrases can further cause a divestiture of change in this tone, and thus this tone shift measure can be very high generally as compared to a general tone. So we calculate this tone shift measure for all 10K files, that is the all MD&A sections for 94 to 2018. And this is how our sample is created. So first of all, we start
just a clarification question, Jalal. So you have analyzed the section 7, right? The MD&A.
MD&A, yeah.
And for balance shifter, is there any dictionary that you have used? I mean, what were the sets of balance shifter that you have used in your analysis?
Yes, so there is this dictionary defined by a particular paper in 2006. We have not mentioned that here because it's a PPT,
Okay, okay,
but it's
okay.
specified in the paper. There is a specific dictionary which comes in 2006, which is defined in a paper in the communications area. That is from where we have taken the balance sheet test.
Very interesting. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So this is how we calculate our sample. We start with 165,000 approximately MDNA that we could have extracted from all the 10Ks for 2094 to 2020. 2018 actually, we had to drop last 2 years because of CompuStat data. We remove all duplicates year and CIK. We remove all filings which are less than 180 days from the prior filing. If any CompuStat or CRISP data is not available, we remove those files. Finally, we remove all MDNAs which have less than 250 words and drop if we are not able to calculate the RMSE value because number of observations are not available. This whole sample creation table is kept in accordance with Locker and McDonald 2014 as well as Lee 2008, which are the benchmark papers for this study. Finally, we have 57,518 firm years.
Jalaj, can I ask a small question?
Yes.
See, while computing those, the example what you give for decline and decline and slightly, how are you getting those weights?
So the weights, the weights are defined by the dictionary that we use, Professor. The weights are 0.8 for all amplifiers, de-amplifiers, and adversative conjunctions, and -1 for negators. However, we vary the weights from 0.2 to 0.9, and the results remain the same. Classic literature in communication suggests these weights of 0.8 and -1 for negators. However, we vary the weights, and the results are robust to that.
Okay.
Yeah. Coming on to the summary statistics, we can see that the summary statistics are pretty standard for all the particular measures used in the study. However, I would like to go through the measures with respect to this table. So AWPS is the average words per sentence for each sentence in each MDNA. Percentage of complex words defined as the percentage of words which are equal to or greater than 3 syllables. Fog index as defined by a combination of average words per sentence and percentage of complex words. So is fish Kincaid, that is FK, and smog index. Log of total number of words is defined as the log of total number of words after removing the stop words and the numbers. Vocab is defined by the number of unique words in accordance with the LM dictionary. A financial term is defined by the number of unique words as per the Harvey dictionary. So all these terms are taken from the 2014 Lock and McDonald paper, which is the benchmark paper for the study. And finally, tone shift, which is a measure that we use. I would like to repeat here that for tone shift, we always take the absolute value. Think of tone shift as a distance between the tone calculated using our methodology and the LM methodology. Since it's a distance, it can be positive or negative. Thus, we take the absolute value to ensure that it is the value and not the sign which at the end they corroborates our results.
Another clarification in this question. So you are, I think you mentioned, but you're the analysis at the sentence level, right?
Right.
And then you have aggregated it for the entire form level. Okay, yeah, thanks.
Moving on, we try and see what correlation does the tone shift has with respect to all the existing measures. We find that mostly it has very little correlation with the existing measures. The highest correlation that is observed with case of log of words, which is negative, and average words per sentence, and smog index, which is around 8%. Generally, we don't find a high correlation with the tone shift with the existing measures because of the way it is curated, because of the difference in the methodology that it has with respect to the existing measures. Now, coming on to our equation, our main equation in the study. So the impact of tone shift is examined using this equation 1. So we analyze the impact of tone shift on the root mean square error that defines the non-idiosyncratic volatility of the firm post the 10K filing. So this is calculated as the RMSE for days 6 to 28 post the 10K filing. This regression includes an intercept, calendar year dummies, as well as pharma French 48 industry dummies. The standard errors are clustered by industry and year. All these specifications are as per all the benchmark papers that we have cited and also have been benchmark papers in this area particularly. In the first table, what we do is that we analyze the impact of tone shift in the presence of average words per sentence, percentage of complex words, and the three indices which are a linear combination of these two variables. We find that tone shift is significant in all these cases and the coefficient is positive. Thus, what it means is that an increase in tone shift is significantly associated with an increase in RMSE post the 10K filing, specifying that an increase in tone shift specifying a difficulty in reading leads to a higher volatility post 10K filing. And we find that all other measures, which are complex word range measure, are not significant in the presence of tone shift. However, they are significant and tone shift is not there in the equation. Next up, similar to the above table, we analyze the impact of the other set of categories of readability measures, which is vocab, which is the unique LM words, financial term, the unique Harvey dictionary words, total number of log of words. We find that, again, the results are the same. Tone shift is significant and positive. That is an increase in tone shifts, implying an increase in difficulty in comprehending the MD&A section, that is increased difficulty in readability, leads to an increased volatility, that is an increased RMSE. However, we also find that the percentage of unique LM words is also significant. The coefficient is, however, really small. In the third table, what we do is that we put all the coefficient, all the readability controls that we saw in table 1 and 2 together. And we see whether the presence of this changes the results anymore. We find that the results still remain the same. However, log of words comes out significant with a very small coefficient at certain levels. And vocab, that is the unique LM words, is still significant, however, with a small coefficient. Tone shift, again, is significant and with the same coefficient. Next up, so one of the major things that is examined with respect to a readability measure is its impact on the volatility post 10K filing, that is the RMSE. Another important thing is the impact on SUE, that is the standardized unexpected earnings. Again, what we do, similar to RMSE, we analyze the impact of tone shift on the SUE post the 10K filing. The SUE is again calculated similar to the 2014 LM paper. We again find that tone shift is significant in all possible scenarios of the presence of existing. So all the controls that you see in the previous tables, the first table, this table, are present in all tables, however, have been removed for presentation purposes. With respect to the existing readability measures, we find that it is only vocab measure, that is the LM unique words, which is significant. However, the coefficient is negative. Now, to interpret the impact of tone shift on SUE, here one can see that the greater is the tone shift, that is the greater is the readability difficulty, the higher is the standardized unexpected earnings. That is, you can say the higher is the divergence among analysts with respect to the earnings of the company. The coefficient here, even though is significant, the sign is negative, which is incorrect as per the LM paper itself. So that is why we see that even in case of using SUE as a dependent variable, tone shift performs really well. Now, all the existing readability measures that we have used have been criticized previously in the last 4 years in readability studies due to the problems with complex words, or due to identifying the impact of sentence, due to quantifying a sentence, due to identifying a sentence in a 10K filing. One measure which was introduced in the 2014 study is the gross and net file size. The idea there is that to simplify the whole process of readability, one can just look at the file size in MD of the 10K file. Thus, what we do is that we again include even that measure as a control and see how does tone shift perform in the presence of all the existing controls as well as the file size. We find that tone shift remains significant. File size is significant in some measure. Net file size, which is not presented here, is not significant in any measure. Gross file size is insignificant. However, the coefficient is really, really small and is also not significant in the presence of vocab, as well as both vocab and financial term, and the log of words, number of log words. Thus, we find that even after including gross file size, which is a new measure that was defined apart from the existing measures of readability, tone shift is still significant and the coefficient broadly remains the same. Next, what we analyze is the impact of tone shift on the earnings of the future. We analyze how does tone shift perform in trying to predict the earnings for the year T+1 and T+2. We present the impact of T+2 here. The results remain the same. The coefficient here is negative and significant. What it specifies is that a higher tone shift, that is a higher difficulty in comprehending, that is a higher readability level, leads to lower earnings both in year T+1 and T+2. Please note that we only present the results for T+2 here. The results for T+1 remain the same. We have not presented them for the case of brevity due to time management. And we also find that none of the other measures are significant in the presence of tone shift, even though they are significant when tone shift is not in the equation, in the other benchmark results. There has been a consistent argument that sometimes firms might have to use difficult language. So one of the major arguments in readability is an obfuscation versus an ontological argument. An ontological argument states that firms have to use a difficult to comprehend language due to the kind of business they are in. Firms such as IT firms, or firms such as who are in aerodynamics, or firms such as which are in deal with things which are difficult to comprehend and generally have high syllabic words such as finance, might have to use them not for the case of they are trying to obfuscate something, but it is an ontological requirement of the firm. Thus, what we do is that we create a business complexity measure defined by CompuStat, and we include this as an additional control apart from all our existing controls. We find that even after controlling for business complexity, that is controlling for the ontological argument, we still find that tone shift is still significant and the coefficients are broadly remain the same. We also find that vocab measure is also significant in the presence of this. However, the coefficient remains the same, and log of words is significant. However, the sign is incorrect. Another argument that we could think of is that there are a lot of valence shifters. So there are 4 categories of valence shifters as defined in our benchmark paper where we take the tone. However, it can be the case that most of them, such as but, although, however, are used out of necessity and not for the idea of obfuscation of any meaning or to increase the readability requirement. Thus, what we do is that we take only those valence shifters which are used less than 2% of the times. Thus, confining with Zipf's law, we only take valence shifters which are individually used less than 2% of the times. We drop the most used valence shifters and again calculate the tone shift to find that the results are still significant and the coefficient is actually higher as compared to the previous cases. Next up, what we do is that we do a modified dictionary approach. Up until now, we have done phrases as well as valence shifters. However, there are certain verbs such as increase, decrease, rise, fall, which are not characterized as per the LM dictionary. The reason is the meaning of those verbs depend on the noun that they are paired with. An increase in profitability would be good. However, an increase in cost would not be apprehended good. Thus, we create another set of multi-clausal phrases depending on verb-noun combination of these particular verbs which are not defined as per the LM dictionary. We include them in our tone quantification process, calculate tone shift all over again as an absolute difference between the tone calculated using new and the LM dictionary, and again calculate tone shift and find that tone shift is still significant and the coefficient also broadly remains the same. Now, among the categories of valence shifters that we use, 2 of them are particularly interesting. One is adversative conjunctions, that is, however, although, but. And the second category is negators, such as not, cannot, words like that. An interesting thing about these particular valence shifters, type of valence shifters, is that they change the sign of the tone that is spoken before them. What we do next is that we only identify those specific type of valence shifters which come in the category of adversative conjunctions that is but, however, although, and the negatives such as not, nor, cannot, and what like that. Calculate the tone shift only using only those valence shifters and repeat the whole analysis and find that the tone shift is still significant in the presence of this, and the coefficient is actually higher as compared to previous scenarios.
Just a clarification question.
Yeah.
It could be a very naive question as well. So I think there is an uncertainty category also, right? I mean, for let's say LM dictionary. I mean, how does did you see any kind of association between those words and your tone shift? Because that's also captures little ambiguity and uncertainty. Or is it captured already in the vocab variable that you have here?
So, as you rightly said, the uncertainty category, or there are certain other emotional categories of LM dictionary which are defined under emotions, are used to characterize emotions such as uncertainty, the degree of polycity in the text, things like that. We only consider the negative and positive. That is the
positive and negative categories.
We do not go into the emotion category of it, so we do not analyze it.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, after seeing the impact of tone shift over all these firms in the presence of existing readability measures, we move on to see how does readability in terms of tone shift and other measures has changed. Now, 1998 October is when the SEC plain English rule was imposed. Post that, what we see in this graph is the median as well as the Q1 and Q3 percentile of tone shift across years. What we see here that there has been a consistent downward trend in tone shift post 99. Thus, post the rule of plain English, that is to simplify these financial documents, was imposed, actually readability has improved. That is, tone shift has gone down. And the impact is much higher with respect to the firms which were in the higher category of tone shift, that is, which were in the Q4 of this tone shift category earlier. So the fall is much steeper in those cases. Similar to this, what we do is that we see in numbers how did that translate. So when you talk about general tone shift, the median tone shift, we see that pre-99, 56% of the firms in our sample had a positive trend. Post 99, 57% of the firms had a negative trend. Similar patterns are observed with the bottom and top quartile as per the tone shift. So if you look at the top quartile, 48% of the firms pre-99 had a positive trend in their tone shift. That is, pre-99 tone shift was increasing. What we see post-99 is that 55% of the firms had a decreasing tone shift. Thus, we can see consistently that the impact of this rule is pretty straightforward. That is, actually has improved readability over the years post-99.
It's a very strong result, very good result. Yeah.
Thank you. Next up, we look at this median tone shift with respect to firm size. So we're trying to see tone shift for firms which are in the higher quartile and the lower quartile of tone shift itself. How does it differentiate with respect to the smallest as well as the largest firm? As expected in terms of information obscurity and asymmetry, the smaller firms actually had a very high tone shift to begin with, because they are covered by much less analysts, and as generally covered in the literature, smaller firms actually generally have a higher degree of readability required because they know that they are not being washed as much as the larger firms. We see that there has been a fall in both the Q1 as well as the Q4 size quartile for tone shift. However, the fall for the smaller firms has been much more steeper. Next up, we look at the distribution of tone shift over the years. Again, the same result as we saw in the graph, that pre-99, there has been an increasing trend. The distribution as well as the extremes have been increasing pre-99. However, post-99, the maximum values, that is the outliers, as well as the general distribution, has been on a fall. That is what we generally see. Now, let's take a look at the other readability measures with respect to this particular rule. Now, average words per sentence had actually had a opposite impact to what we saw in tone shift and what was generally implied by the SEC plain English rule. There was a general straightforward trend or a slightly downward trend for AWPS, that is the average word per sentence pre-99, which has been actually increasing post the plain English rule. So the average words per sentence is becoming larger post the SEC plain English rule. That is, there have been longer sentences, which should not be the case. Percentage of complex words, on the other hand, generally fares the same. It has generally been the same. Only the outliers have changed a little bit. The distribution remains the same. Log of total words again shows a similar trend as to average words per sentence. Pre-99, there was an increase, and post-99, there again has been an increase. So the SEC plain English measure has actually not impacted the log of total words. Now we see the comparison of these with respect to the average words per sentence and the tone shift. So one can see here that the average words per sentence has actually gone up. If you take a look at the median average words per sentence, and tone shift has come down like we saw in the previous one. Similarly, the percentage of complex words has generally remained the same, what we generally saw. As for log of words, like we just saw in the distribution, it has increased. The median log of words has increased post 99, whereas the tone shift has fallen. We also do a t-test and a Wilcox and a Welch test to see whether there was a change in trend pre and post 99 for all these particular measures. What we find for tone shift is that the post 99 trend was positive as per both these tests. And for all other measures, we find that the pre-99 measure was actually lower. And there has been an increase post-99, which is completely against the SEC plain English rule that we have seen. Now, till now, we have been talking about the readability of the MD&A section in particular. However, if we look at the 10K, the tone shift of the whole 10K in particular, we find similar results. That pre-99, there was mostly a stagnancy and a general increase in the outliers. However, post-99, when we're talking about the whole 10K also, there has been a consistent fall when it comes to the tone shift, as in the distribution as well as the outlier. Similarly, for log of words, we see, similar to MD&A, there is an increase post-99, which is against the plain English rule. Similar things are observed for net file size and highly for the gross file size. That is, the gross file size has actually significantly improved and shows a very high positive trend post 99, the plain English rule, when it was advocated that the language and the content of the 10K files should be smaller and easier to read. We also take a look at the median tone shift in comparison to the median net file size. We just looked at the distribution, and you find similar things, that net file size has increased over steadily, and gross file size shows a very steep upward trend. Concludingly, what we do is that we figure out a new measure of shift which captures the incremental impact of complex multi-causal phases as well as adverbs and adjectives. The effect could lead to a hard to parse and a complex language, which could lead to ambiguity and a higher volatility and uncertainty for investors as well as analysts. Now, this manifests in a significant positive association with the idiosyncratic volatility, that is the RMSE, and standardized expected earnings, that is SUE. Thus, to reiterate it, an increase in tone shift, implying an increase in difficulty to read, leads to an increase in volatility as well as an increase in uncertainty in earnings. We also find that an increase in tone shift is also significantly associated with a fall in earnings in the next 2 years, that is T+1 and T+2 years. Another interesting thing that we find in the study is that the readability of the MDA section as well as the 10K has actually improved over time when you look at tone shift as a measure of readability. However, the opposite result goes when you talk about all other existing measures. Thus, all other existing measures show that the SEC 98 plain English rule was not successful. However, it was successful if you look at tone shift as a measure of readability. Thanks, and I would be open to all questions.
Thanks, Jalaj. That was a wonderful presentation. Very important and interesting results, especially that your tone shift readability is, I mean, it's a better measure to kind of see the impact of SEC's plain English rule. Very interesting result. Yeah, please, participants, if you have any questions, please, you may post it on the chat. Uh, you know, uh, okay, I'll just. Okay. A clarification question. Can you please detail the RMSE in terms of your realized volatility and forecasted estimated volatility measure? This was one question.
Sorry, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Can you please detail the RMSE in terms of your realized volatility and forecasted estimated volatility measures?
Yeah, sure. So RMSE is calculated as the root mean square error of the market model. That is, you have the firm's return on the left-hand side and you have the market return on the right-hand side. And the root mean square error calculated for that particular equation for days 6 to 28 after the 10K filing. That is how we calculate the RMSE.
Okay. Thank you. Another question, according to the literature, this is by Rajappa, on readability, before and after plain language guidelines of SEC, there is improvement in readability. However, there is no change in readability according to your study. How do you explain?
No,
that's actually, he has shown that, right?
That is what
that is the main contribution of the paper. I think, yeah, somewhere maybe. Any other questions from participants? Please feel free to kind of post it. I'll ask Jalaj. I have a couple of questions. I mean, 10K is, I mean, MD&A obviously it's the heart of 10K with regards to textual, text part. But then, item 1A, especially the risk part, right? There also management kind of write a lot of things. And we have, recent literature, at least, especially in the accounting, Mr. Campbell et al. And all, they have tried to, look at those sections. So have you kind of thought about extending your paper to analyze the risk part?
So we are actually currently doing that. We are analyzing different parts of 10K. We are also analyzing the notes written in the 10K. We are something else that we are doing is we are also analyzing the filing prospectus. So these are the few other things that we are analyzing. So yes, we are moving.
Okay. And another just a thought, like, I think when the Sarbanes-Oxley Act was passed in 2002, right? I mean, that's also an important event, right? In terms of how do you kind of provide information in 10K. Do you think, have you seen any changes in tone shift around that event? I mean, have you explored that idea?
Not that we have analyzed. We have only looked at the SEC plain English.
Okay.
We haven't analyzed them. There might be something, but not something that we have looked at.
Yeah. Okay, some more questions from the chat. Okay, there's a question. Could you explain the reason, even if the average words per sentence has increased post 1999 and tone shift has decreased, why didn't the complex words hasn't decreased?
The idea there is that when the plain English rule was imposed, there were specific guidelines there. It specifically said that there should be less use of multi-clausal phrases. There should be less use of adverbs and adjectives. There should be less use of passive voice. There should be less use of such passive verbs. The existing measures do not really capture those things. That is why they do not show any decrease post that rule. The measure that we have made is in alignment with that particular SEC measure that was passed. That is why we see a difference in respect to SEC measure post 98 with respect to tone shift and not with respect to measures such as the complex words or an average word per sentence.
Thank you. I think there's another question. The study is based on US data. Does Indian reporting format not comprehensive for such work?
We have not yet looked at Indian data, so I am sorry I can't comment on that. But yes, in the future, we would be willing to look at that and see whether something can be done with that and how comprehensible that is to us.
Great. Yeah, this I think Professor Prashant Das has one question. Yeah, please, you may ask Prashant.
Jalaj, this is a very interesting paper and the findings are very plausible and convincing as well. Just some nuances, like in your RMSE model, why is size and BM coming in the second stage of the model? Why are they not in the RMSE model itself?
So, Professor, the RMSE model is specifically defined to only include the market return as per the existing studies to capture the non-idiosyncratic part of volatility. And that is why the book to market and size are included as additional controls.
Yeah, but
So,
I hear you, because I guess you're basing it on Lafren McDonald 2014, right?
Yeah.
But the whole idea behind Farmer French model was that the market model was incomplete.
Right.
Hence, I mean, they were not able to show that it was a totally efficient market model. So they included that in the first stage.
So
I was
if you
wondering
include, sorry, you're with the
I was
lag.
wondering if just including them in the market model, I don't think it's going to make a lot of difference, because.
So we calculate RMSE with the small minus big as well as high minus low factor, and the results remain the same.
Results remain the same, right?
Yeah.
So because here, these two variables are kind of heterogeneous. They don't seem to belong there.
Right.
And do we have any interpretation for NASDAQ dummy to have a positive sign? Is it because these are smaller firms and there is a higher degree of uncertainty already, or?
Not something that we have analyzed, Professor. We had to keep the model as the same as the existing studies to show a comparison. We did not necessarily actually go into the interpretation of the
okay. So there is a study
controls
that includes this control in the model,
right?
right?
All the controls that are specified in this study are from the landmark studies of Lee 2008 and LM 2014. Yeah.
Okay. I see. And then did you also consider examining other dependent variables like analyst dispersion? Or
we have analyzed analyst dispersion. We have, and the results remain the same, that increase in tone shift leads to a higher analyst dispersion. We have not included in the paper because of the kind of submission we had to make and the size and all. But yes, we have used analyst dispersion. Yeah.
Okay.
There's another similar question I've already addressed, but from one of the participants, can you please explain why the other measures of readability is shadowing the effect of plain English?
So the idea here is, like he's just talked about, is that the conditions that were specified in the plain English rule of not using passive voices too much, not using adverbs and adjectives where not required, not using multi-clausal phrases where they're not required, not using passive verbs where it is not required unnecessarily, those are not captured by those existing formulas. See, these formulas date back to the 1930s. A fog index was specified to test how if a Navy 18-year-old kid in the US can enter the Navy, will he be able to read the instructions given on the manual? Similarly, a fish intake index was done to specify the readability among students in the elementary school. These formulas are not meant for financial documents such as a 10K. And when the plain English rule came to specifically respect to 10K, those conditions are not met. That is why you do not see anything in those formulas.
Jalaj, can I ask you one small question?
Yes.
No, for me, since I'm not aware of the literature, so the question could be quite naive. But can you, explain why, in which way you can correlate these two? Suppose if tone shift goes up by 1%, RMSE goes up by 4%. What does this mean?
We examined the impact in terms of standard deviation, Professor, because the units are measurement. One standard deviation increase in RMSE leads to a 0.20 standard deviation, that is 20% of standard deviation of RMSE. which in itself is a very comparative measure to what the existing readability measures also give. They give 12 to 15% or 18% of RMSE increase with respect to file size or a fog index. We also give a similar 20% increase in terms of standard deviation.
Okay, and in this regression, do you not worry for autocorrelation?
So the clustering of the standard errors by industry and year, we ensure that there is no heterogeneity or autocorrelation in the model.
Okay, and you know I'm still, you know, my question was if your suppose tone shift goes up by 1%, RMSE goes up by 4%. Okay, as a layman, you know, what does it mean?
As a layman, it means, Professor, that the post-filing volatility for the firm goes up by that percentage amount. You can see much higher volatility after removing the market volatility, that is the idiosyncratic volatility. That is the increase in volatility that you will see in the firm if the tone shift is higher, post the filing date.
Okay, and the last point is that while you were presenting those changes over time point, you are showing several box plots, and you are saying that there are some changes have happened and some significant. And did you test them that they are significant changes? Because in many cases, you know, if you go back to some of the other places, you know, visually it does not look that they will be statistically significant.
No, they are statistically significant, Professor. We test. We do a t-test pre and post 99. We do a Welch test pre and post 99. We do a Wilcoxon test pre and post 99. We verify all the trends for all the measures, MDNA and 10K pre and post 99. And they are significantly different.
Any more questions from the participants? I think, yeah. So I think please feel free to, you know, ask any question to Jalaj. Wonderful paper, Jalaj. I mean, and wonderful presentation. Some very strong results. And yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you for the
okay. There is one last question. I mean, this is a question like applicability in terms of usage. Like, what is the, you know, implications to practice of your research? That's one question. One final question from Sam. Yeah.
The applications can be with respect to both investing as well as hedging. As and when a 10K is filed and you know that the tone shift is high, you know that the RMSE, that is the non-idiosyncratic part of the volatility, will be high. Thus, as an investor, you can hedge your portfolio. As an investment manager for a mutual fund, you can hedge your portfolio if your portfolio consists of the firm, if that particular firm. As a very baseline investor and investment manager, we believe these are the applicabilities.
Thank you so much. And yeah, even the participants are uploading your presentation. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. And yeah, that's it from today's seminar.
Thank you, Jalaj.
Thank you so much, Professor. Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you, Adrija, and thank you.
Thank you, Professor.